everyone. Welcome. My name is Hyun. I was called by Edward. I'm from South Korea and I'm a PhD candidate studying education psychology at Auburn University. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Fong. He's here to share his research and teaching experience, and also he has really helpful recommendations for grad students. Dr. Fong is an assistant professor in the graduate program in developmental education within the Department of Curriculum and Instruction. And he's currently at Texas State University. And let's give him a big round of applause for this interview.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here and to get to share part of my story and any advice I have.
All right, thank you. So our first question is, could you tell us about yourself?
So about myself, I grew up in California, in San Francisco, and that's where I did most of my schooling. And I was always fascinated by psychology and just my own schooling experiences. How can I best learn? How can I try to remember the things that I'm learning? And what motivates me to learn? And I think I was, even at a young age, just very reflective about these kinds of questions. And I went to UC Berkeley for my undergraduate studies, and that's where I took many psychology courses, and I actually majored in a field called cognitive science, where I learned different things about linguistics, different things about philosophy, even computer science. And it really got me interested about, what is student learning? And the main question I was looking at is, how do people learn within their social context? And so I was really interested in things like language and things like social supports in learning, and how all of those dynamically interact with each other to really influence how students are learning. And that's when I majored in cognitive science and linguistics. And then I also minored in education. And so really those three things kind of have combined together and really got me excited about even doing kind of further study in this field. And that's when I enrolled in my doctoral program in educational psychology at UT Austin. And that's where I worked with so many different faculty members that really shaped my thinking and really got me excited about research and asking interesting questions to really maximize student learning and motivation. And that really kind of is the early part of my journey. After that, I served as a postdoc in a higher education program. That really helped me think about, questions about equity and diversity and the institutions and contexts students find themselves as they learn. And that led me to my current position. I'm an assistant professor, a sixth-year assistant professor in the graduate program in developmental education, where we focus on supports for student learning at the college level. It's been a really just wonderful time. I still live in the Texas area where I did my grad school, and able to really enjoy teaching, research, and mentoring students. And also trying to raise my own family. I have two children, two little girls, and they keep me busy. So
I'm for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And then I actually used to live in Irvine, California before. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, but
That's awesome. Yeah.
right. And then thank you so much for sharing your story. So now, based on your background, my next question for you is, so for our second question, how has your past student experience shaped you as a researcher? What are your research interests? Or you can also share what are your teaching interests. And what do you want to share with the audience through your research?
So, in terms of my experiences as a graduate student, I would say um, working with different faculty members was really important to me. And so I studied initially with Claire Ellen Weinstein, who developed instruments like the Lassie, the Learning and Study Strategies Inventory, and created the model of strategic learning. And from her mentorship, I was really able to see just how dynamic self-regulation is. It incorporates so many different facets of students' skill, will, and self-regulation, as well as understanding the academic environment they're in. And so that really gave me a really holistic picture of student learning and the supports that can be provided for students. My primary advisor was Dr. Erica Patal, and through her work, I learned about different methodologies like meta-analysis and research synthesis. And that really shaped my view of that technique because I really saw the power in being able to synthesize many studies together to really get a holistic picture of what does the literature say and where are there variations that are meaningful to explore. And Erica also helped me really refine my interest in motivation and what are the factors that really motivate students to persist in their learning, to do well in their classes, and to engage in different learning strategies. And so she really shaped me both kind of in kind of substantive content areas as well as in the different methodologies I could use to study these topics. And then my co-chair was Diane Schallert. And with her, I was really able to refine my interests in some of the social cultural aspects of learning, as well as some of the linguistic and discourse aspects of learning as well. And through our collaborations together, as a student and beyond, we've been able to look at the experiences of feedback, giving students performance feedback in their classes and all the different motivational and social dynamics that happen when you receive feedback from the learner's perspective. And so I think working with these three outstanding faculty mentors really shaped me to become the researcher I am today, who integrates all of these three aspects with the various mentors I've had through my graduate experiences. And I think these really shape my current research interests today. There are many different topics I'm passionate about, topics like motivation regulation, topics like student belonging, the social cultural aspects of learning and help seeking. All of these interests that I have now, I think all stem from the really rich student experiences I had with these faculty mentors. So currently I'm working on just different syntheses, different research projects that really look at some of these constructs in detail, because I think we talk about things like motivation regulation or things like belonging, but we don't really have a holistic understanding of how the literature has examined these variables. Many researchers define them in different ways, measure them in different ways, and find different results based on different types of studies that they do. And so because there tends to be just a lot of messiness, right? A lot of
Mm-hmm.
discrepancies in these literatures. That's what really gets me excited. I'm drawn to the messiness in some of the constructs that are really important to us as educational psychologists. And for me, I want to be able to use meta-analysis and research synthesis to really disentangle some of that messiness and really get to the bottom line of what's the big picture of what's going on. And so to me, that's the main message I want to share with the audience that takes in my research, that these are difficult and sometimes confusing constructs. But here is where we can find some clarity. Here's where we can find some commonality in all the research that's been done. And through that, really be able to push the field forward, right? To have the field think about what are some ways we can integrate across perspectives and to come away with the big picture, the big takeaways of the research that's out there. So many times, I think people depend on just a single study or one or two studies to make their point. For me, I want to say, look at everything, right? Look at the whole corpus, the whole literature to get a full picture of what's out there. And to me, that's how I want to really support evidence-based decision-making that takes into account the entire literature.
Wow. First of all, I can tell that you had a really outstanding mentors because you're now outstanding professor, right? So, and thank you for sharing your story. And I believe that you're turning messiness into meaningful work, right, for our field. So thank you for sharing your response.
Of course.
So for our last question today is, what are some recommendations that you want to share with grad students? More specifically, what is your advice for students who like to pursue faculty positions or those who are more interested in industry positions?
So my recommendations for graduate students, um, I would say it depends on maybe where you are in your graduate program. I would say in the beginning, it's really important to explore and learn and read a lot because I used to joke to myself that I don't need to read that much right now. Maybe when I have more time, when I know I have a faculty position or another job, that's when I can do reading and learn there. That probably won't happen, in your future position because you're only going to get busier and busier. And so I would say really take the advantages and the opportunities afforded to you as a graduate student if you do have that time and bandwidth to really invest in learning and reading as much as possible. Develop both breadth and depth, right? Because I think with breadth of reading, when you read widely, you're going to be just exposed to different topics, and that may ignite different interests. Or what's really cool for me is different intersections of interests, right? Because right now the field is moving into thinking about more interdisciplinary work and thinking about ways in which different topics are being kind of combined together. To me, that has to happen when you read widely, but also read with depth. Be able to focus in once you explore and really read deeply in a certain area as well. And so that's my advice for maybe kind of earlier graduate students. I think as you move on in your graduate program, I think a lot of students maybe have difficulty with imposter syndrome. Like, oh, I'm in grad school, but I'm not really that experienced yet, or I don't have the confidence to do research. I would say trust in your experiences and training because in your coursework, we as faculty are providing you those building blocks so you can gain the confidence to do your own research. And so that's something I experienced. I had faculty that said you can start your own research projects now. Like you don't have to just follow the direction of a mentor. You can begin asking your own questions and thinking about your own types of studies and inquiry that you want to engage in. And so I would say don't always doubt yourself, but actually believe that you have the tools to actually engage in your own meaningful research because you are an emerging scholar, right, as a graduate student. So kind of lean into that. And then as you kind of finish your graduate studies, I think it's important to really invest time in academic writing. And I think not only the dissertation, not only your qualifying exam, but really getting in kind of daily daily and weekly habits and rhythms of engaging in regular writing, because that's really going to help you both in the dissertation phase, but as well as thinking about research projects and other things you're working on. I think writing is such an important skill to develop, and you want to be able to really build in those good habits now as a grad student. And in terms of thinking about the future, I think there's many different pathways. And so the question mentioned those that are interested in faculty positions and those maybe more interested in industry positions. I'll start with industry positions. I'm not as experienced kind of in this area, but I do have a couple of students that I've graduated now who have entered more of the industry positions. And one thing that I think is really important for those positions are to really invest in methodology courses, and not just the methodology courses maybe offered in your program, but offered kind of throughout your institution, because you might be doing data analysis, you might be doing different types of analysis, but in different areas, right? Because we might be in educational psychology, but there could be methods in economics or in business or in computer science that are actually more appropriate for the industry field. So, for instance, one of my students is working as a assessment and evaluation director at a university, and she really needed to know things like SQL and database management and Tableau, like visualization. Those things we don't teach in a lot of our ed psych methods courses.
Right.
We're more interested in, regression or ANOVA. And so there's all these different facets of the industry positions that may not be perfectly aligned with the courses that are required for your degree. So I would think maybe more broadly in terms of your coursework and look out for those other opportunities to equip yourself in different methodologies that could be useful for a future industry related career. But for those in faculty roles, I would really suggest developing a curiosity and a desire to ask compelling research questions. As I think about my own position as a faculty member, I think that's what really drives me. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of competition because there aren't so many faculty positions out there. So there has to be some sort of intrinsic motivation, right? Some sort of desire and interest to really learn and discover. And I think that's what's helped me, because I have a lot of questions, and that's what motivates me to keep collecting data, to keep analyzing new questions, to start new projects, because I get really curious and I really want to know, what is the answer to this, right? Or how does this work? Or how do we measure this? How do we solve this problem? And so I think a lot of people kind of come into grad school with that, but I think you can also refine that, right? As you find topics and questions that interest you, that's what's going to really keep you going. And so really look for that and really try to cultivate that as a graduate student, because that's, I think, what's going to keep you going through, a rather challenging process to get a faculty position and, get tenure and things like that. So I would recommend a really broad advice, which is become curious, right? That's what's helped me.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing really helpful and practical strategies. And I really like that you offer uh like examples for like each stage of grad school program. And I believe that for those who are watching this video, we definitely will find your strategies helpful, insightful, and very encouraging. So we appreciate your time and your experience today. And I hope that, we can meet you at a conference. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.